Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2022. This is episode 574 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I decided to record live today. So if you're on the live stream, just pop in your comments and questions that you want me to see in all caps. I will star them and handle them at the end, or if I can fit them in, I'll fit them in, but it just kind of depends. Today I wanted to talk about something that came from a listener who asked me on Telegram, hey, your communities are really productive on Telegram and you don't have a lot of problems with spam bots and all these other things. How do you make that happen? Because I'm thinking of starting my own community focused around a specific topic. And the topic that it's focused around is one that could invite some, well, assholery, as we'd like to say. And, you'll get a lot of good discussions, but there are people who become so opinionated and so aggressive about it that there could be some uncomfortably not so nice conversations in that group. So I answered by connecting this individual with one of the moderators from the Telegram group who has dealt with the most like spam body weird stuff that comes in on our Telegram group. And I can say this, we would have so much spam on our groups if it wasn't for our moderators being on it. And they've deployed a number of tools over time, those sorts of things. Without that being a group approach, if I was just one person trying to do that, I don't think it would be how it is. And a lot of you who've been in our networks over the years have seen phases of that kind of activity. But I said, I'll answer your bigger picture question about how to establish a functional community, which is bigger than just on social. I'll do that as a show because then other people who are thinking the same things can do it. So that's what today's topic is about. I mean, I figure rather than answer one person, we'll do all of them. Also wanted to point out, I got this wonderful t-shirt in the mail from Special Operations Equipment. For those of you on the audio, it says prepared, not scared. And it has a picture of shovel. I think it's a shovel and a pitchfork. There's a gun in the middle. And then there's a medical thing on the side. And I love this t-shirt because some people take this defensively when they see a shirt like this, but I take it differently. When you're prepared for the things that are most likely to happen, then you're not scared. When you're not scared, you make better decisions. Your life ends up in a better place. And I like that message. It's better to, be the Boy Scout, right? I don't know why in our culture in the last couple of decades, we have decided that Boy Scoutery is a bad idea, like that always be prepared concept. That's actually just a great way to live your life, think things through a little bit, don't overanalyze things, prepare for the most likely things to happen. And then when something happens, you're good to go. I just yesterday did a webinar called Assessing Your Property for Defense. Tactical Redneck did it, and we were testing something. I have a webcam I wanted to use, and I hooked in some wireless audio, which it had a few hiccups, but it went pretty well. Well, in order to do that, I needed to get into the bag of PA system stuff that I have. And on the topic of prepared, it's all neatly organized. So I was running behind yesterday. I went to the pool and swam my laps, and then I went to the hardware store, and that took longer than I thought it would. Came home with a hydrangea though. And I didn't have a lot of time to set up the AV for the thing, but because I had prepared in advance by organizing the bag of the AV things like the mics and all transmitters and that sort of thing, it was easy to launch it. And the couple of AV issues we had in the middle of it where the mic was poking in and out was totally my fault. It wasn't because I wasn't organized. It's that I'm kind of new to using these wireless mics. And there's a transmitter and it talks to a mic. And then there's some antenna I put on the transmitter that I do not store. And I always forget to put those on. So next thing I'm going to do is add a checklist to the bag, like do these 3 things, not these 2 things when you set it up. Because I was like, they're like, it's cutting in and out. I'm like, I know why. It's because the antenna, whenever he goes behind me, when he's pacing or whatever, cuts out. That totally happened at my workshop too a couple of times. People were like, why is the mic shutting out? I'm like, I know why, because those antenna I bought are not on the thing. Yeah, that is the life that we have. Okay, before we jump into the first official segment today, I have a couple of announcements. And everybody on the live stream, welcome. Good to see you. Let others know we're live. First of all, the chicken processing workshop, which was scheduled for June 18th, is now moved to July 2nd. The people who've already bought tickets, when you hear this, don't freak out if you can't come. I will give you your money back, even though it's a non-refundable ticket. This one's totally my fault. I looked at when we got the chickens and when they would be ready to process, counted out wrong because I counted to the wrong number and chose that date. So the chickens would be like maybe Cornish game hen size if we do it at that time. And part of your class is that you get a chicken. So I have moved it to July 2nd, also a Saturday, same time of day. I emailed everybody who bought tickets and said, hey, let me know if this works. Really sorry about that. If it doesn't work, I'll totally give you your money back. Hopefully y'all can shift. And if not, it is what it is. I'm really sorry. It takes 8 weeks to grow them out, not 6 weeks to grow them out, as it turns out. So we'll be doing that again, July 2nd. If you want tickets, go to livingfreeintennessee.com, sign up. Tickets are $95. It's your class. It's your guide. We'll feed you lunch and you get to go home with your chicken that you processed. Second thing is the Tuesday live. You guys know how we do Tuesday lives, right? That's like tomorrow at 12:30. It's really Wednesday. We've moved them to Wednesday. So we're doing a Wednesday live now, Wednesday at 12:30. That time may move over time as we figure out the best time of day to do it. But we had some things conflicting with Tuesdays. The one we do first Tuesday with Jack will stay on Tuesday. But this week, Wednesday at 12:30, join John Willis, Toolman Tim, and me for a Tuesday live stream. We're going to talk a bit about upselling. We're going to talk about a lot of things, as is true. But I wanted to have Tim back on to talk about how he takes existing client relationships and adds things on to farm that revenue, because I think that's something we talk a lot about how to sell and how to get new customers, but once you have a really good customer, they'll buy more from you if you have something that they want, right? And something that works in their budget. So he's going to talk about how he's done that. Okay, it's time for our first segment, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And it is post-vacation. So I went on this almost 10-day, it was like a 7-day that turned into 8 or 9 because the drive was really long, trip to go speak at the Exit and Build Land Summit, which I loved. It was so energizing to be at that conference. John Bush did a great job in running the AV. I think that's the biggest event he's ever run, and he nailed it. If you get to go, like, check it out. Really good speakers, like almost too many good speakers at this event. Like there was so much to absorb. It was a little bit overwhelming, but had a great time there. And then I scheduled 2 days off just in an undisclosed location, not at my house. Because if I'm at my house and I take days off, I don't take days off. I'm like, oh, I think I'll plant this thing, or I'll mess with the tomato wall, those sorts of things. And I ended up staying at a place for that 2 days. I really only got 1 day, because by the time you drive there and then you have a night and then you have all day and then you leave again the next day, right? But that was a big deal. And I went out to dinner with a friend on my way out there, and they told me I wasn't finishing sentences. I was so tired. And that's kind of scary because I drove in that state. But it just kind of underlines the need in my own balance to make sure I schedule that time when I'm going to be on for days on end, that I have some reset time so that I don't get myself sick. I don't do something stupid and drive into somebody while I'm doing those sorts of things. I'll keep doing that when I have big adventures like the one I had there. But while I was on vacation, I ate and drank anything I wanted to. Wasn't staying keto, just did whatever I want. I will now say I was in Fredericksburg, Texas, and it was great. Never been there before. I love having German food. German food is not ketogenic. You can stay ketogenic and eat German food, but I didn't. I just had whatever I wanted. Spätzle, I had all sorts of yummy stuff. And I drank whatever I wanted. You know, I was alone, so I wasn't like sitting with friends, which means I would maybe overindulge. There was a fun lesson there in that I had 1, maybe 2 drinks on vacation, and then that was it, because I just didn't want more. And that's been a change. For those of you who know me know I love to party with my friends, right? With my bourbon. Since quitting that daily drink and going ketogenic and losing weight and feeling better, if I drink a lot, I get a really bad hangover. And so when I drink, I have a tendency to only, like, my body tells me this is how much I want. And that's actually a healthy change for me. So that was fun. Anyway, we are now on the post vacation reset. Post vacation reset, which means back to the basics, like going back on my ketogenic all natural diet, not drinking what I want anytime I want. I got my fizzy water here. Fizzy water. And I can have a cocktail or two a week. That's the frequency I've figured out works within the context of my body not turning into a really obese body. And just cleaning, like refresh, exercise schedule, discipline, all of that. I feel a lot energized from taking that break. And then it's been a lot easier to jump back on the thought of the daily walk with my dog's wagon and working out. I've got an exercise bar here and set up, almost done setting up the gym and outdoor kitchen. So that's cool. And having a deep pantry full of healthy things really helps with this reset, because as long as I don't go to the store, I don't eat the crap, because there's not crap here. Well, there's not that much crap. I have some chocolate. And that really helps, I think, when you start your nutrition at the grocery store or at the pantry level, depending on if you're growing your food or buying your food. It's a lot easier to stay on plan because you're home, you're hungry, all the junk is at the store and not in your pantry. You eat what's there. It's very helpful. Also, the garden is producing all of the vegetables we're eating here at this point. The only vegetable I augmented from the store this week is I had 2 onions left from my workshop and my workshop event. But I've got plenty of green onions out there. Somebody dropped off some Egyptian walking onions, and I had a couple that are coming up, and that's all coming from here. I will end up buying onions from farmers again this year because I didn't plant bulbing onions anywhere this year. It was too much. And that's fine. I buy things from farmers nearby. But it's really fun to get to that point every year where you're eating off your garden. What that looks like right now is no tomatoes, no peppers, and no squash for me. What I have are lots of broccoli, greens-based things, salad, and herbs. And then I'll do a saute of that. We got beets. Not beets I grew. I actually bought those at the farmer's market this week. But my beets, actually, I was like, oh, I failed at beets this year. And then I came back from Exit and Build Land Summit and still looked like the beets were looking a little slim. And then we had this awesome rain a couple days ago, and all of a sudden my beets are there. That they must have been there, but they looked so sorry that I was like, okay, whatever. Still don't have green beans up, but we'll have them. Once they're up, I think it's 45 days till you get your first bean. It's so nice living off the fresh food, though. The freeze dryer is running 24/7. That's because I have my weekly gallon of milk that I don't use all of. If I don't make it into cheese, then I freeze dry it for winter use. And then other things like herbs that are freeze dried are far superior to any other drying method. And so I'll pre-stage this in the freezer in Ziploc bags because herbs are going to get ground up anyway, so I don't have to worry about keeping the exact form. I'll stage them in the freezer, and then if the freeze dryer is in between things, then I'll freeze dry whatever. We just did garlic while I was gone, so Jenny put that in, and Tactical took it out, and that was all the garlic that was starting to get long in the tooth. We're about to harvest the new season's garlic, and that means that stuff left over from last year got freeze dried. I used some of that in an Alfredo sauce last night, and what happens when it's freeze dried is there's absolutely no moisture in the herb as long as you store it right. And when you throw it in a sauce like that, I didn't saute it this time. I just threw it in to see what it would do. It just absorbs all the milk or the heavy whipping cream in this case. And wow. That's all I can say. Wow. Totally loving the freeze dryer. Totally loving it. The canning kitchen, which is set up outside, is almost done. What was in the way of that was after the spring workshop, I needed to put all the things away that we brought out for the spring workshop. But I had Self-Reliance Festival coming on June 11th and 12th, right? And some of those things needed to go to the Self-Reliance Festival. And I was so tired after that. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do from this event to that event. And then the rest of the stuff that I don't need, it all goes away for a whole year. And so I can put it way in the back up high where I can't reach it. Got that all done. I got that all started this weekend. Everything's cleared out. And having the canning kitchen set up outside is a huge help to me on the cooling of the house side of things. I can outside. I cook a lot outside at this time of year when the temperature gets above 90 degrees, because then I don't have to air condition the heat put out by cooking. And Jen is on the live stream, says so much garlic peel. She peeled a lot of garlic and ground it up and put it there. Jen, I have a jar of that for you here, by the way. So it's almost set up outside. And then the canning kitchen is also where my rower is going to be set up for my workout space, and the bar that John Willis gave me for lifting. I'm getting back into weightlifting because I've been not doing that. And while swimming laps in the pool helps, weightlifting is also really helpful for developing bone density or maintaining bone density into your later years, ladies. Yes. Curry. I'm curing and grinding pork. So my focus for the next few weeks, we processed 4 pigs. I've got more bacon to cure. I've got I've got hams to make, and then I've got a lot more sausage to make, and I'm going to do a combination of ground pork and Grandpa Darby's sausage recipe. So that's happening. And the way I did that, guys, is I threw it in the freezer, and then I'll partially defrost it to, cut the pork chops and those sorts of things. The cuts are a lot cleaner that way. It's easier to grind it that way. And then we will end up repackaging that and being all done with that entire process. And then some of the Holler neighbors are going to take some of this pork to their house, but they got to get the stuff that's in their freezer that we threw in there before my spring workshop that's mine back in my freezer. So we're going to be doing a bunch of musical freezer stuff. I have been struggling since going keto with white chicken meat. I've always liked the dark better than the white, but as I've gotten accustomed to a more meat and fat centered diet with vegetables, that's basically how I do keto. I probably eat more vegetables than I'm supposed to, but I figure if it's in season, it's not going to hurt me unless I just eat like a big old mountain of potatoes or only potatoes. White chicken meat is kind of like a blank slate. It doesn't have a lot of, it has chicken flavor, but not a lot of flavor. And these are chickens I've raised. So like, they're not crappy store chicken, right? With absolutely no flavor. And it just because I've gotten used to more fat in my diet, it's dry. So we've started experimenting with how do we prepare chicken breasts in a way that we like. And yesterday what I did, because I also had heavy whipping cream left over from the workshop still, like I way overbought for that. You guys just didn't put as much in your coffee, probably because it was hot. You probably drank less coffee this year. I made an Alfredo sauce. And the way I made that sauce is I melted butter and I put heavy whipping cream in and heated that. And then I added the garlic and I added some freeze-dried basil and salt and pepper. In hindsight, I would not add the salt at that time because I forgot Parmesan cheese is really salty. And then once that it all, heated up for a while and had a chance to absorb the flavors, I threw in about 3 cups of Parmesan cheese and the chicken all in that sauce. And then I served it over a bed of greens. It was tasty. And having that heavy cream sauce really helped. A lot of the things I've been doing with chicken breasts are like chicken curry, saucy sort of stuff or stewy sort of stuff. If anybody has ideas on ways to make chicken breasts taste good or have a good, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I think you know what I'm saying. Send them to me because I'm doing curries, I'm doing stews, I'm doing like this Alfredo thing. I'll do a tomato pasta sauce with that. I'm making cheesy broccoli chicken soup. Yeah, see, so Jen Hill's making cheesy broccoli. Jen probably has the same issue I do with chicken breasts. The reason I did the Alfredo is I was cooking with what I have. And what I have is leftover heavy whipping cream, and I didn't want to work through all that before it goes bad. So that was fun. So that's Tales from the Prepper Pantry. Next is our frugality tip. I keep forgetting to add this on Monday. It's not my show notes template. Now it is. If you have a frugality tip you want to share with the network, email me, Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com and click on contact, fill that out. I love to share these tips. I'm not probably as frugal as I should be in some of the decisions. And the key to a frugality tip is we want to be able to build it into our lives without it taking a lot of time, because we want it to be frugal, not cheap. Cheap is bad. The ROI on your time is important. If you're spending a lot of time saving 5 cents, instead of spending that time building your business or building your life or doing something you like to do, hanging out with your family and kids, that's bad. But if you can build in a system, then it works. And past frugality tips, one of them was washing my Ziploc bags, which I thought was silly, became less silly when there was a shortage during 2020. And now I just do it. I have a whole system, a way of hanging it. Well, one of our listeners said she uses reusable Ziploc bags, which are more durable, which is kind of cool, and a bottle dryer, like a baby bottle dryer, to dry them out. She sent me some bags. I love them. They have like little sunflowers on them, so they're cheerful. And I had already bought some silicone bags to test. I'm testing these 2 different kinds of bags, and it's kind of fun. We're seeing how long they'll last. I will say the ones she sent me are easier to wash. So we'll do a whole review of that. But I really do like the reusable bags. They're a little bit more expensive, but it's like, if they last a year, $20 in bags, then for me, that's actually about break even on what I would have spent on Ziplocs. If they last 2 years, then it's half the price for me. My tip this week, though, is about an online tool that I just discovered. And the funny thing about this online tool, I discovered it from Sarah because she was talking about it on Zello. And I'm sure she's talked about it before, but I never, ever linked in or clicked into what she was talking about. It's called Gas Buddy. Gas Buddy is an app you can put on your phone, and it will GPS locate you. So you're giving up some privacy here, guys. You don't have to turn on the GPS locate, but it works better if you do. And it will say, okay, these are all the prices around where you are. And then you can choose your gas based on how much out of your way it is. But if you use the app, then you get rewards, and it starts taking prices off at, like you might get a $5 gift certificate towards your next gas purchase. That's not bad. I started using it not necessarily to go out of my way to find the cheapest gas, but if I can see at this exit it's $4.29 and at that exit it's $4.19, no skin off my neck to go one more exit. And then it also lets you enter prices. So yesterday I just went to the gas station I was going to go to, entered the gas prices, and that gives you a little bit, gives you rewards points, which equals a little bit off per gallon at the tank. Now, a lot of people are complaining about gas prices right now. Gas Buddy's one of the many tools you can use. There are different rewards. And Liberty All Day, who is the person who gave me this, just have to watch out on Gas Buddy. My parents will go so far out of their way to get the cheapest gas, but the mileage they put on negates the cheaper gas. Exactly. That goes back to the ROI discussion, right? If I can see it's this station or that station on my way and it's 10 cents cheaper somewhere, which, having just driven to Texas and back, it'll be a spread 10 to 25 cents exit to exit. I was just watching the prices on my way down out of curiosity, and it can be that much of a spread for one more mile, and it's on your way because you're just going off the off ramp anyway. If you're driving 10 miles to save 2 cents in gas, you are spending more money saving 2 cents. So I don't know. I thought it was a really cool frugality tip that you can, as long as you use it wisely, work into your life. And thank you, Liberty All Day, for that suggestion. As I said, I'm sure you've been talking about it for years, and I just didn't even click in until I was driving somewhere thinking about gas, and that is what it is. Margot says she has had some of those bags for at least 3 years. Yeah, they look cheerful. Like, the cool thing is, like, a Ziploc bag, and this is stupid, it's psychological. A Ziploc bag just looks like a Ziploc bag. Like, these have pretty decorations on them, and I open my fridge and I'm like, oh, it's sunflowers. It like makes me happy. And don't underestimate the power of that too. Like the way it just makes me feel tidier in my fridge, which is a big deal because my fridge is not always tidy. Next segment is Operation Independence. This is where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives, or using a skill in a wise way to avoid paying a guy, which means you didn't have to earn the money to pay the guy, which means you get a 30% bump right there because you didn't have to pay taxes on the money you earned to pay the guy. As I said, we're 90% from the homestead food right now. That's meat and everything. It's about 10% right now that I'm using off homestead. And this is where I was 12 years ago after moving here. Was about 90% of the food came from here. And then my job became so demanding, I didn't have time to do it. And so then I fell back to buying locally. And then I fell back, if I couldn't find it locally, to buying at the grocery store. I think nutritionally, it is better to have food closer to the source when you can, because it hasn't been traveling for so long. Just that alone is a big deal. And then, of course, not eating the processed foods is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Also, from a budgetary standpoint, I'm not buying groceries at a time when some of my friends are reporting 40% increases in grocery prices. That's huge. I'm going to go look at the price of mayonnaise next time I'm at or near an Aldi, which is my baseline. Like, see if mayonnaise has gone up another $1, just out of curiosity. Then, speaking of creating value from your homestead, I have a really cool chicken processing setup. I have a commercial plucker. I have hot and cold water out of my hose, and I have a propane scalder that works great. Would anybody be interested in renting my setup by taking your chickens here and processing them here for a day? I've got a vacuum sealer that's a chamber vac and bags. I'm just thinking about that. I don't really want to rent the stuff to go off-site, but I've kind of been thinking about doing a day fee for people here who we can trust to use the equipment. Of course, if you've already taken my class, you know how to use the equipment. If you haven't, we'll have to have some sort of certification or something so that things don't get messed up. And then, of course, you'd have to clean up your mess. But I'm thinking about doing that as a possible, like, getting some value out of what we have, because we already have the setup and the 220 outlet in and all of those things. It's actually super convenient. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show. And that is fostering a functional community. Now, it was really fun to have 2 F words in the title of that. These are good F words, right? I almost said fostering strong communities. And I was like, functional is more what I mean. Strong communities are important. And if your community is functional, hopefully it's also strong, right? Because you need it to be strong to be functional. But functional encompasses more than just strong. So I thought I'd talk about that, because the question really came, how do I set up this community on a potentially touchy topic with people who are passionate about this thing and have it be functional like yours, basically spam free and not a lot of weird bullying stuff going on, right? They didn't say all those things, but that was all in the question. And I thought, we are blessed as a community. The Living Free in Tennessee community is strong. We empower each other. We help people when they're in trouble. We don't have a lot of under the radar drama, although there is always some of that in a community. And it's people who genuinely are happy for people when things happen. Like, if I were to tell everybody I won the lottery next week and I had $1 million, instead of being jealous, you all would be like, that's great, Nicole. I know you're going to put that to good use, right? And 1 or 2 people might try to borrow money from me, but mostly it'd just be like, yay. And when I do something that's super successful, people cheer rather than undermine. And I see our community doing that for each other. And when somebody starts something and makes a little step forward, other people in the community see it and they're like, here, we'll boost you up a little bit. And that's how a community should work. We've been taught to be jealous of each other. We've been taught that if one good thing happens for somebody, a bad thing has to happen for somebody else. And I think through a lot of our education system, although educators would not say they intentionally do that, I think what's been set up with how it's organized by grade and age and how it's organized, this team against that team. I think some of those fake pressures have caused people to take on an attitude of needing to undercut in order to get ahead. And undercutting to get ahead can work. It can work really well. But does it make you happy? And does that qualify as functional community? When you think about every job you've left because you're like, these people are nuts, it's usually a dysfunctional work community. When you've been frustrated at schools and changed schools, it's usually a dysfunctional community. So how then do we make functional communities? I've learned a lot from the growth of the LFTN community, and these are just my thoughts on it. I think other people with different experiences within the community have different perspectives. And I'd love to hear your perspectives as we go, or after the show. We can keep this conversation going, because those of you in the LFTN community who are starting your podcasts, who are starting your blogs, who are starting your GSD crews, all of these things, you're starting a new community with that. And it may be that you're bringing people into this one. It may be that you're pulling some people out of this one. It's all good community work, though. When we make them functional, we can interact. Like John's and my communities interact really well with each other because his community is also functional, right? And when you get those two functional communities together, the cultural standard is set how one behaves. And when the cultural standard is set and you're used to that, and you put good in and you get good back as a general rule, it all works. And then you can adapt to the little differences of this community or that community. I think the first thing, as you're developing a community or as you're participating in the community, that needs to be in place, you need to decide the purpose. In the case of the question I got, there is a purpose, which is to discuss, I don't know what the purpose is, but it could be something like discuss, philosophies and implementation of this point of view. Let's put it that way. I'm trying not to out the person so that I don't undermine their project by associating it with me. Decide what the purpose is and then communicate that. An example of this would be the Tennessee GSD crew. That's get shit done. Yeah, we use the S word. This is a group that was put together with the purpose of being more focused about helping people in our immediate network get things done that may require more than one set of hands, or would be better with more than one set of hands. And what we do is we go to each other's homesteads or homes, and we will do a project over a weekend. We eat, we drink, we're merry, we have a good time. The purpose, though, is to get that done while also developing our close relationships so we can count on each other. Well, once you have the purpose, then you communicate it. Now, somebody who wants to come into the GSD crew, who sits on their butt all the time and doesn't ever do anything, is going to last about 3 seconds, maybe 3 events before they're like, I'm not going back there. Because if you're just sitting around doing nothing all the time, that doesn't fly in a get shit done group. And it's clear from our purpose that that's how that works. It's kind of like Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes for somebody. In order to build your home, you have to put a certain number of hours into other people's homes. The benefits of this are that low-income folks have a way to get a house they own. When they take over the house, they know how to maintain it because they were there building it. They know how that toilet went in and out. That means if their toilet breaks, they know how to put it in and out, right? And if you go to Habitat for Humanity and stand around whining or doing nothing, you're probably never going to get the house. You've got to put the work in. The GSD crew is the same way. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be all the time 110%. I would say we work hard, but we flow through, and people have different things that they focus on, and it all works because we can communicate. So decide your purpose, and then the second thing is make sure the purpose is communicated. And if you're in a organically growing network like the Living Free in Tennessee network, we had discussions a few years in. Hey, what is the purpose of this? Is it to empower each other? Is it to talk about the podcast? People would come in and say, "Can I share my podcast?" I don't know. I'm taking, yeah. I want people to share and to empower each other. I'm not worried about if you talk about your podcast on my network. I talk about my podcast all the time. It's what I do. It's part of my life, right? If you go in there, though, and all you ever do is talk about your podcast and you don't ever participate as a community member, that's looked on ill, because the purpose isn't to empower each other, not just promote something in the network. And that has been communicated. If you forward something in my network, like an article, and don't have any context at all, it's just a link, you get some crap from people. Because if we don't know why you're bringing, like, we're having a conversation here. You don't just jump in to the middle of somebody's conversation with a newspaper and go headline and then jump out. And when you forward a link in a community that's talking about things, that's what you're doing. You're taking the newspaper, shoving it in the face, and then walking off without any discussion. That's not participating in a community. That's like interrupting cow. It's, and they usually, nobody knows what to do with that. Even if you think it's obvious, you need to say, "Hey, I just saw this article on the increase in price of fertilizer, and it has me thinking that maybe food prices are going to go up because farmers can't afford to just eat that cost. So what does that mean for planning my future?" Link. Totally acceptable discussion. Interrupting cow? Not so much. Okay. Second thing, this is hard for people. More members in your community is bad. Yeah, I'm going to say it again. More members in your community is bad. Your goal should never, ever, ever, ever be, how many people can I get in this network? Never. If that is your goal, you will do well at it. You will get lots of people in your network. You will also get some of the wrong people in your network. And when you have wrong people in your network, that's the cancer that makes the community not work. It took me a long time to realize that, because from marketing, you're like top of the funnel and then blah, blah, blah. No, I want the right people in the funnel. Wrong people are not welcome here. And it's a judgment call. More is bad. And communicate that. I know people who manage email lists. And when their email list gets over about 10,000, they look at how much people have opened emails. They look at who's actually bought, clicked on stuff. And if somebody's just been getting the email and doing nothing, they get cold. They would rather have a small, more effective email list than a huge list that's just going out to people randomly. Same thing works with community, right? The same thing works with community. I would rather have 5 active, empowering people who hold each other up, who know how to communicate with each other, who get things done. 5 doers than 10 people where 5 are doers and 5 are takers. Because if I have that second scenario, I'm much more successful, right? There's 10 people in the community. No, those 5 people that are takers are going to make your community end. It'll just end, right? So more is bad. Keep that in mind, because we don't think more money is bad. More money can be bad too. It just depends on how you handle that, right? We don't always think that way because we're taught more. Not more. Not more. The third one's important, and this is be a community of doers, not takers. And we've talked about this a lot. Doers get together and they are positive. They are a positive influence on each other. And when one of them says, "I think I'll start a restaurant," the other ones will ask, "Oh, really? What kind of restaurant? Where are you thinking?" They'll start asking questions about it to see if, what the person has thought through, what that looks like. They won't be like, 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. You might as well give up right now. That's a taker. A doer may bring up critical questions like, have you ever run a restaurant before? If not, how are you going to get those skills? I know somebody who started a cafe in town here who, before she did it, she spent a year working at a marina restaurant in the area to learn how all that worked before she started her thing. And even that, eventually she decided to close it because it was too much work. And then she went to set up somebody else's restaurant for them. And that worked really well for her, right? But if somebody had been up behind her saying 9 out of 10 restaurants fail within the first year, that would have never happened. So a community with people who do that, those people who say stuff like that got to go. They got to go. Those are your takers. Takers are the people who always need something and never give anything. And when you start looking at it that way, it really helps you analyze how is this community functioning. But if you don't have a way to get rid of them, then you got a problem. So you need to erase the toxic people from your community. I don't mean cancel culture. I don't mean make them lose their jobs. I mean, erase them from, like, they got to go. And the only way that happens, if you end up finding yourself as a leader of your community, is you tell them to go. Or if it's a digital community, it's a lot easier. You just ban them. It is very important to relentlessly kick people out. Because if you do not, then that is the highest level of strength and functionality of your community. Because here's the deal. Your community is as strong as functional as the most weak and dysfunctional person in your community. It doesn't matter how many strong people you have. If you have that one, that's your baseline, because they're the one everybody sees. And Michael Vertrees says, we recently discovered that sometimes doers can become takers over time. All of us become takers over time sometimes. The question is, do we stay takers? It's totally okay, by the way, if you have somebody who's engaging in behavior that's not fitting, that you say, hey, this behavior that you're doing doesn't fit this community. Instead, we do this. I think you're going to be more comfortable here if you do this. And then if they don't change, then you move on. I find the in-person communities have the hardest time getting rid of the slack, so to speak, because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation. Now, you don't always have to have the uncomfortable conversation, because I find at events when there are takers and everybody else is doing, that person doesn't get talked too much because they're over there not doing anything and we're over here doing things. And they tend to just sort of dissipate usually. But sometimes you have to have that uncomfortable conversation. I've had to have a few over the years of, this is just not okay. No means no. So if I find out that you solicited sex from somebody in our network, which has happened a time or two, and then you did not take no for an answer, I'm going to have a really uncomfortable conversation with you like I'm your mom. And I'm willing to do that. As somebody who's the perceived leader, I'll do that. I do have this conversation in the back of my head, like I'm having to talk to somebody like they're a teenager. And this is a basic baseline, right? But sometimes you got to have the hard conversations. And that's when you get rid of the toxic people, sometimes you're the get ridder. On the digital side, we have awesome moderators in our group who also love banning spammers and jerks. They do it. It's a game. And this brings us to the next thing. Set a model of clear and healthy boundaries. One way to have clear and healthy boundaries is to turn banning people into a fun game where we share gifts with each other. Oh, ban hammer, right? Letty always likes to bring out, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now from the Joker movies. Anyway, somebody's screaming it at their car right now. And we do that not to make fun of people who are being banned, because that's not the point. Harley Quinn, thank you. Harley Quinn. We do that because we're communicating to other people, like, if you behave like this, if you're trying to sell me on a Bitcoin scam, you're out, right? Yeah. We do that to communicate. That's the culture here. That's one of the boundaries. And we communicate other boundaries. Some boundaries are, you don't come to the holler and just drop by. I need to know you're coming. And then sometimes I say no, thank you, because I need time to get my stuff done here by myself sometimes. And there are boundaries. Now, I let more people through here than most people would let through their house. But when it's like leave me alone weekend, it is leave me alone weekend. And that's related to community, because part of our community centers here. We gather here and we do things together, right? So set and model healthy boundaries. This has been something I've learned a lot about in the last 3 years. I even went to a psychologist to work on it because I had boundary issues. I probably still do, but I'm much better now. And I will admit that as part of making a stronger, more functional community, because you probably have boundary issues too. Yeah, I'm talking to you right there. You have boundary issues. And when you get better at it, everything becomes way more functional. Use technology and communicate that you're using technology. Some ways that we've used technology to keep our networks functional is by having bots that make people pass through some screening before they get into our social networks. So the Telegram group and MeWe, you got to get through some things before you get in. Now, on the MeWe group, if you're going to join Living Free in Tennessee on MeWe, it's going to ask you some questions before you're allowed in. If you don't know the answer to question number 2, that's okay. I'm asking you that question to see if you're a person or not. And the question is, what's on Nicole Sauce's roof? The right answer is, anybody know it? I'm just going to let you put it in the chat. I'll let you know who can get it in there first. What's on my roof? If you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you know what's on my roof, and it's not a possum. I'll just put that out there. The other way we do this on Telegram is we have spam filters like bots. Goats, Liberty. Oh, let's see. Kit, you got it first. Kit, woo! You get highlighted on the comments. Everybody was like screaming, goat! I used to have a problem with goats on my roof, and every time my goat gets out, she does end up on my roof. And you just hear this like, Santa Claus is coming because there's a goat on my roof. It sounds like a reindeer. Use technology. The other way we use it on Telegram is we have Rose in one group who tells you to click here if you're human. And then we have Shieldly on another group. I think we may go to Shieldly on all of them. And it makes you take action. So the bots come in. They don't have any way of dealing with Shieldly. And they just automatically get kicked back out before they ever become a thing. We have, for the size of community that we are on social network, we have an inordinate number of scammers, spammers, and sex seekers coming into our groups, which is not the culture of our group. No judging if that's the culture of your group, but our group, that's not really what we're about. We're about talking about building a better life for ourselves and discussing things. And we discuss news things that happen, and we discuss how to can stuff, and we discuss how to make bacon, and we discuss, I've got this problem, anybody help me solve it, right? None of that is the other pieces. And you get these bots. I think the fact that I have free in the title brings in more bots because it's the crypto scammers and all of that. And having Shieldly there has been a great improvement, because we'll have nights where we're getting 20 an hour coming in. And Letty has dealt with a lot of that. And she'll be like, why is this happening? Well, Shieldly has something really cool, guys. And this is what technology can do. Attack mode. We go into attack mode. We have to remember to come out of it. Are we in attack mode right now? Oh, there was an attack sometime in the last 3 days. We go into attack mode, and Shieldly won't let anybody in, not even real people. And then the spammers, because I think it's coming from same sources. It's not just individual ones. They'll go through waves. They'll realize they're not getting anywhere, and then they move on. And then we come back out of attack mode. So having some of those technology pieces, and there will be better ways as we go to figure this out, right? Having that has been a huge help to the moderators. And you want to make moderators as happy as possible, because those people put up with a lot of crap. They put up with everybody who's complaining about this or that in the background. Um, and the less we have of that complaining, the better it is. Carrie says, I really dislike the forced kumbaya attitude of some organizations. I've got to actually form my own sense of belonging and usefulness. Yeah, you can't force alignment. And I actually think alignment is bad. I like to have discussions, not arguments. We'll get to that though. Have an inner circle and accept help. The first group we ever created was because a listener said, you need to have a Facebook group. And I said, that's great. You need to post on it once a day or else it's not a group. And so we started sharing my 3 things. And he did it every day for months, and other people did it. And that's what started getting us to know each other. We had something to do every day. That moved to MeWe. And now some people post my 3 things and some don't. There's just this ongoing chat on MeWe plus some posts. I really like the shopping. There's a weekly shopping update that happens over there that like compares prices of standard things. That's kind of fun to watch. And the my 3 things, and then pictures of people getting stuff done. That all sets a culture, guys. That all sets a culture of achieving and gives us something to talk about that is not complaining. Because complaining has its place, but it should be a small place in your life, because less complaining, more doing, right? Less complaining, more doing. The inner circle, though, these are the people you can call on and be just blunt. Hey, Fred, don't worry, Fred. I'm not actually calling you out. I'm just using the name Fred. Fred has been really, really complaining and negative lately. Is he going through something? Let's kind of give him a push in the other direction and see how he does. And then if Fred responds, so you'll find 2 or 3 people commenting this or that and trying to divert the negative impact. And then if Fred doesn't change, then Fred is talked to directly. And then if Fred doesn't change, Fred is banned. Without the inner circle, you can't do step 1. And step 1 is usually all it takes to kind of divert somebody off their bad day, because we all have bad days. But if somebody gets stuck in the bad day, then it affects other people, and they have they like absorb your bad day, and then they have a bad day, and it spreads out. So we try to keep that like, okay, we'll talk about the bad day, but then we'll move on, right? No time to whine, too much to get done. Liberty all day says attack mode is off. Whoopsies. Yeah, that we probably forgot to turn it off. So usually when it's turned on, somebody says something to the moderators, so we remember, but that means you could not join Telegram for the last however many days. By the way, if you want to join Telegram, now's a really good time, because attack mode is off. Attack mode is off. So use that inner circle. That inner circle helps you start new efforts too. So if I noticed, for example, that it would be really beneficial for us to have a spring canning tip of the week. And spring canning tips of the week are better crowdsourced than single sourced. You would get the inner circle going and say, okay, come up with a spring tip of the week and post it. And then you post it, and then you post it. And next thing you know, other people are posting them. And all of a sudden I learned something new about canning I didn't even know. That's the important of having and fostering that inner circle. That's also going to probably involve your moderators. These are the people who are willing to spend time keeping your community strong, keeping your community functional. Moderators are super important. Keep them in your inner circle. If you have moderators who aren't in your inner circle, I don't know why you chose that person, right? Moderators are awesome. Mentor people on the edge. And this one is one that some people would disagree with me. Some people are like, if you mess up, ban. Sometimes there are people in our community who are on the edge. They haven't quite grasped the culture of doing. And I don't give up on people quickly. When I give up on you, I've given up, but I don't immediately go to give up. And if I see somebody who's kind of on the edge, and we've had a few over the years, we'll try to set them up in a mentoring situation. We won't formally say, hey, Bob is going to be your mentor, but we'll give them opportunities to change through modeling, through talking to them on the side about things, maybe offering a hand up instead of a hand out, right? And we just see how it goes. And if over time that doesn't go anywhere, then we move on and they move on. But I think in our community, we like to be welcoming, we like to be empowering, and we will give you a chance. We just won't give you 10 chances. We won't give you 10 chances. And that's the difference between functional and dysfunctional in our community is some communities never give up on the worst elements and then they become the worst elements. So mentoring people I think is important, especially in a community focused on building the life you want to have on your terms, right? That's the tagline of the podcast. You can't just give up on people out of hand. You have to be there. Likewise, you cannot let them just absorb all of the energy of the community and not intervene. And then finally, discussion is good. Arguments are bad. What's the difference? Disagreements and discussions are a great way for us to challenge each other, to get rid of our bias and our blind spots, to cut through the crap that is the propaganda that gets spread out in the world. Discussion of that is awesome. Backed up with facts, examples, that sort of thing. You can have positive discussions where we all learn and some of us are right and some of us are wrong, or we agree that this is just an opinion, not a fact or fiction discussion. And your opinion is this, my opinion is that. We're okay with that. We'll move on now. We've heard each other out. It didn't change anybody. Those sorts of interactions are super healthy. I encourage those in the network. If somebody disagrees, I don't want to see everybody, like if there's a minority opinion in our group and I see people piling on, I'm like, hey guys, like dial it back a little bit. Let that person be heard. This isn't, whether the lunar landing was faked or not, whatever, right? This is this is just a discussion. Let them have their say. You need to honor that person can have their opinion, but you don't have to agree with them and you don't have to pretend to agree with them. There's a difference between piling on and having a discussion. Likewise, arguments are bad. Arguments usually have emotion involved, negative emotion. People are getting angry. Those sorts of things. When arguments start really taking off, and you've seen a few explode over the years, I usually reach out to people on the side or the moderators do and say, hey man, let's take this offline because it's not helping the overall community discussion to see two people scrapping at each other like cats. And that rarely happens in our community, but it does because it happens in every community. If you have a community where that never happens, you don't have a real community. You have people on their best behavior when they're there who aren't real. And you got to have real people. And sometimes we disagree. Sometimes we fight. The key is recovery, the speed of recovery and a method of recovery from that to avoid that infecting everything. So arguments are bad. And there are a lot of times where people start having discussions. I had one this morning. Somebody asked a question on my YouTube channel that I thought was not an appropriate question for public. And I answered it in sort of a very direct way, hoping that the person will realize that's not an appropriate public question, especially when the answer is the answer I gave. So they misinterpreted something. And that kind of question should be asked. If there's a concern there, I should get an email about that on the side. There are things you ask better on the side. There are things you address better on the side. If I see somebody in the community has been really, 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 really negative and down, and there's somebody who's been in the community for a while, I will probably say, hey, I've noticed you've been feeling down. Is there something going on that we should talk about offline? I might reach out to them that way. If I see people getting all up in people's faces about their choice of boyfriend, which has never happened, but it's the best example I can think of right now, that's a side conversation, right? You see what I'm saying? There are some things that you just don't blast out. I mean, it is what it is. We don't necessarily need all the details. Likewise, it's not bad to share details, but when it's getting into drama, it's time to go offline first. If that can't be resolved, then, the person who is ultimatuming somebody else is usually the person that's got to go. If somebody's like, my way or the highway, then I'm like, highway. And it's highway for the person who said my way, not the person who was willing to live and let live. That's a very simple filter. So I hope these tips have helped you all think about ways that you develop community and ways to interact with people and ways to be a better participant in community. I think it's important to review this sorts of thing from time to time for ourselves, for me too, because sometimes I get emotional. It's not like I'm not an emotional being. I'm totally emotional. And I'm not always the best actor. And to the degree that we're all better actors in the community, that we're moving towards that shared vision, that we're empowering each other, that we're working together, even if we disagree and have discussion, the stronger the community is. And then that is how we have the foundation set for if there is a real problem, like that time that Melissa's house got blown off its foundation and everybody showed up and put it back on the foundation with heavy equipment. Remember that? That would not happen if the community was toxic. And so because we aren't toxic, we're willing to get together and get shit done. She has her place back on the foundation. That's what we want to see, right? Anyway, I hope this topic has helped. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at Holler Roast as I drink my fizzy water. I've already had 3 cups today. That's like 1 cup over my usual. No more coffee for Nicole. Herbal tea is next. The other way is to become a member. Consider doing that. Just go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on membership and sign up. And then don't forget, Self-Reliance Festival is June 11th and 12th. On the 10th, which is Friday, we'll be doing a hog processing workshop. Hog processing tickets will no longer be on sale after Friday this week. I have 10 seats left in that class. Self-Reliance Festival tickets are also almost sold out, which means you can't get them at the door. Those are over at selfreliancefestival.com. That's for hog processing and for the Self-Reliance Festival. With that, go out, make it a great week. Okay, I put that pause in there. I have some questions that I starred as we went, and they were not exactly germane to the topic. So guys, I'll stay on a bit and chat with the live audience and give you, so if you have questions, just put them in all caps. This first one was John, JP, John Paul Jones. Hey, was John Willis shut down? His YouTube channel was put in jail for a week because he was spreading dangerous misinformation, I understand, about which water filter he liked. He was talking about the Sawyer water filter, and somehow that triggered the triggerers and they pulled it down. This filtering of information doesn't work very well. I mean, sometimes somebody's talking about something that legitimately is against their terms of service, but they have bots that analyze it. And if we've learned nothing else in this world of censorship that we're in, AI isn't good enough yet to figure this stuff out. And so I've seen a lot of people banned or put into jail, YouTube jail or Facebook jail for random stuff. I called snow white devil dust once. I did. And I got it. I got put in jail for that. I was referring to snow, not people. I don't like snow. It was a very negative comment about snow, but it was not bullying like they said it was. So, that is what it is. I think he'll be back in a week. He now has 2 strikes, I think. So 1 more strike and his channel's gone. I hope he is syncing to YouTube. And I just unstarred the other one. Woo-hoo. I just realized I better get cracking and get inventory off you. Yeah, you better. Okay, so there was a second question I starred, but whoever put it up did not put all caps, and now I accidentally hit the star, and I cannot find it. So I'm going to do a quick scan. But if anybody has a question, go all caps. Here it is. I saw your video talking about Berlin and your contrast between East and West Berlin. When and why was I there? I studied German, and when you study German, you want to go to German-speaking countries. So the first time I went to Germany was with my mom for a summer trip. between my junior and senior year, which was in 1989. And then I did my senior year, which was 89, 90. I graduated in 90. Now you guys all know how old I am. And I signed up to go for the summer abroad after my senior year, which was a high school exchange program, which was really cool. And I got in. And that year in 1989, the wall came down. So I spent my summer in Germany exchange program, and then I stayed after and got a train pass and did the backpacking thing around German-speaking countries. I don't think I got to any non-German-speaking countries. And on that list was Berlin. So it was the summer of 1990 when Roger Waters did the Wall concert. And it was right after the wall had come down, like shortly, like within 6 months or 7 months that I was there. And so that's, I think, why I was able to see such a huge contrast between East and West, because East had not had a chance. It was still East and West Germany, by the way. Like, we had to go on a train through East Germany, and that was still a little weird at that time, even though the wall had come down. So that's why I saw that contrast so starkly. And that experience has stayed with me throughout my life, because I saw how much harm communism and socialism cause to a society through just the economic problems that are there. And that's why I get so passionate about our counter economy and our underground network. We need to trade with each other. We need to be the counter economy. But you know what? The counter economy is economy. It's an actual economy that is free. And that's what we don't have in this country either, by the way. So that's why I get so passionate about those things. I see what happens when you try to control the economy. And I see what's happening here as we put more and more and more controls on the economy. We are not a free market in the US. We say we are, but we are not. Anyway, on that, I don't see any other questions. Yeah, that was an awesome time to see Western Europe. I've seen Europe through different iterations. I'm afraid I wouldn't recognize Germany anymore, though. Anyway, we're going to end this now because I don't see any other questions. I will be doing the Friday live, and then this week, Wednesday, 12:30 Central, I'm going to be on with Toolman Tim and John Willis on our Tuesday live, which is now a Wednesday live. Hope everybody has a great week. Go get shit done.